what episode number we're up to. 23?
23.
I was right. Yes.
You're so smart, Kate.
I'm such a smart pants.
How smart are your panties?
My smart pants are the smartest pants. I am recording now. Oh, I'm so sorry. I messed it up. Oh. You were all over it, and I just messed it up with my non-stop jibber jabber. Okay, sorry.
You can start this one.
Hi, Kate. Oh, no.
Hi, Dom.
How are you today?
I'm really good. How are you?
I'm really well. It is the last week of school for the term, and for teachers, students, and parents alike. Well, maybe not parents because their gremlins will be at their homes permanently, but certainly for teachers and students, we are like Leonardo DiCaprio fucked on Quaaludes crawling to the Lamborghini style tired. Like that's.
I know that feeling very well.
Oh my gosh, we're Ludes level of tired. That's where we're at.
Except we're crawling to like an old 80s Volvo, and
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it's at the local RSL, not some pension.
Yeah, and it's Shandy's instead of Quaaludes.
I've had one too many Panadol. Woo!
Oh no, not again. How are you, my darling? How are you going this week?
I am fabulous. This is a very exciting episode. I have got so much to share. What have we had this week? The past 2 weeks, or 1 or 2 weeks, Kate, we've had my nephew's 100th AFL game.
Yes.
That's very exciting. My father just turned 70, so I just got back from a weekend away. You know how
Amazing.
wild 70ths can go.
Yeah, well, I do with your family, that's for sure.
And we just ticked over our 1,000th download. Hello.
Yes.
We're doing a dance right now.
We're doing a dance. But that's so impressive. Considering we just, I'm so proud as punch of that, because we're only 20, this is our 23rd episode. So we're 23 episodes in, we've had 1,000 downloads. I think that's bloody good.
Yeah, I'm very impressed. I'm so proud of us. So here's to the next 1,000.
Absolutely. 1,000 episodes, 1,000 Quaaludes. It's just a time.
Yes, please. If anyone has 1,000 of those, if you have one of those, please.
Yeah, got one.
Post it.
Send it our way. We'll come and pick it up, though. Now, I have a bone to pick with you, Dominic.
Yes.
How very dare you make me wait 2 weeks for this episode? You left us on a cliffhanger. I've had feedback of people reacted the same way that I did, just, audible gasps when you get to the end. If you've not gone and listened to part 1 of this 2-part episode, please do yourself a favor. But I have been, it's all I can think about.
Hanging out, you have
Absolutely.
Been. Well, the announcements aren't over yet, so you're going to have to wait just a little bit longer.
Okay. Isn't that enough? 1,000 downloads, a 70th and 100th. Is it something else to do with numbers? Because
yes.
Excellent.
Speaking of audible gasps, one of our most dedicated listeners, your sister, is having a very special day today.
Oh my gosh. I'm really glad you remembered that.
So Chelsea, yes. This one's for you, darling. Happy birthday.
Absolutely. Happy birthday, Chelsea. She has turned 70 also. So that's two in the one 2 in the 1 weekend. No, she's not 70. I think there's a 7 in the number, but I won't divulge the rest of it.
Divide it by half. Yeah.
Yeah. Happy birthday, Chelsea. I hope you enjoy this episode. She was the audible gasp person as well, one of them for sure.
This episode can be dedicated to you.
Yes, it is the birthday episode.
But apart from all these anniversaries and milestones and all that stuff, I have an exciting new thing that we're going to start introducing into our episodes. And Kate's looking at me really puzzled because I haven't ran any of this by her.
I'm hoping it's what I'm thinking, but bring it on.
No, of course, you do know. But I thought at the start of all of our episodes, we could start putting in just this little shout out because in the past couple of weeks, I've mentioned it, we've networked with some other really awesome podcasts that are doing similar-ish things to ourselves. And one of the biggest challenges for new starting podcasts is, networking and finding new listeners. So Kate and I have been busy behind the scenes connecting with all these really awesome podcasts, and we've unofficially called it the Boo Pod Network. Boo as in scurry.
Oh, I like it.
And each week we're going to do a bit of a shout out for one of these other podcasts. And we're also going to play their little promo before we get into our episodes. So I have done the honors, Kate, of doing our first one.
Amazing.
So I'm going to be featuring for our first ever Boo Pod Network feature, the podcast called The Activity Continues. And Kate, I swear to God, you have to listen to these two. The words cannot describe how fun and entertaining they are. Amy and Megan, I think they're from North America somewhere. I don't know whether it's Canada or somewhere like Minnesota, because they've got a Minnesotan accent.
Amazing.
Which just cracks me up even more. And I would describe them as a couple of scamps who love their coffee and their wine, sometimes mixed in the same drink.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, they don't know about it either.
Okay, perfect.
If you listen to their latest episode, they do discover some random drinks. So
Great.
If we ever meet them in person, I hope they buy us one.
Oh, we'll be in trouble.
But essentially their podcast, it's a recap pod of the TV show The Death Files. So if you've never heard of it, I highly recommend go watching it. But each week they each tell a story recapping one of the episodes of The Death Files. And it's uber spooky, uber scary. And yeah, they talk about some of their own personal experiences with the supernatural, the paranormal. So
I love it.
Yeah, go check it out. You'll have a laugh. They are so similar to us. They're just full of shit and in the best possible way.
Excellent. I love that so much. I love Little Boo Pod Network.
So here's their promo. Enjoy, and we'll be right back with the rest of this episode after this. Boo boo boo. Oh, yay, now we're back.
Yahoo! That is so
Kate.
cute. I love that. But you've made me wait long enough. Enough is enough. I've had it up to Pussy's bow. Hit me with Miracle Flight, please, for the love of God, Dominic.
All right, let's just jump straight back into it. If you haven't listened to it, just go back and listen to episode 21. I'm going to do a quick little recap.
Great.
And then we will pick up where we left off. So for those that haven't listened, and though they should, we were on a flight, Miracle Flight 571. They have just crashed in the Andes. A lot of people have died. There isn't much in the way of survival gear. They have decided that they need to walk out to save themselves because no one's coming to get them. And you may remember that a small group decided to go for a little expedition to, see what they could find. And they were going probably in the wrong direction, I think is the best way to describe it.
It's tricky in the Andes and it's snowing. Everything looks the bloody same. So, I don't blame them.
So let's get back to that little snippet. I'm going to read the last couple of sentences and then we'll pick up where we left off.
Amazing.
So where did we leave it off? They continued east the next morning. On the second night of the expedition, which was their first night sleeping outside, they nearly froze to death. After some debate the next morning, they decided that it would be wiser to return to the tail, remove the aircraft's batteries, and take them back to the fuselage so they might power up the radio and make an SOS call to Santiago for help. Sounds like a good idea, right?
I like it, yeah.
Okay, so upon returning to the tail, the trio found that the 24-kilogram, 53 pounds, batteries were too heavy to take back to the fuselage, which lay uphill from the tail section.
Okay.
They decided instead that it would be more effective to return to the fuselage and disconnect the radio system from the aircraft's frame,
Yeah,
then come back to the tail and connect it to the batteries.
that's clever.
One of the team members, Roy Harley, was an amateur electronics enthusiast. We met Roy previously,
Yes.
and they recruited his help in this endeavour. Now, unknown to any of the team members, the aircraft's electrical system used 115 volts, while the battery they had located produced only 24 volts,
Oh, no.
making this whole plan futile from the beginning.
Oh, I said last episode, they've had enough bad luck. They just need some luck.
Mm-hmm. After several days of trying to make the radio work, they gave up and returned to the fuselage with the knowledge that they would have to climb out of the mountains if they were to have any hope of being rescued. On the return trip, they were struck by another blizzard.
Ugh, of course.
Harley, the electronics enthusiast, he just lay down to die, but Parado would not let him stop, and he took him back to the fuselage.
I don't know where people get this sort of motivation.
Yeah.
I get really absolutely offside if my soy milk is not, like, I have to get a fresh one out of the cupboard and then it's not cold for my Weet Bix. That's just about enough for me to lay down in a blizzard, to be honest. And where do these people who have eaten like a couple of bits of candy, one nut between 10 of them, and then a bit of skin and bones from their friends, where are they getting this motivation? I'd love to know.
We're talking 2 blizzards, an avalanche, multiple trips backwards and forwards, thinking that they had a plan, listening to a radio at the beginning and hearing that the rescue's cancelled. Like, everything is being thrown at them.
Yeah.
Now, on November 15th, Arturo died, and 3 days later, Rafael Acavrin died from the gangrene due to their infected wounds.
Yeah.
Numa Tukadi, whose revulsion for eating the meat accelerated his physical decline, died on day 60, the 11th of December, weighing only 55 pounds, 25 kilos.
No.
Now, Kate, I have taken shits as big as that after rugby weekend.
He weighed the same as a battery.
Yeah, 25 kilos.
Oh my gosh. That's not like, that's wild.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine. That would literally be skin and bone.
55 pounds. Yeah.
You can't be, it has to be just skin and bone. But
now, that was on
days.
day 60, by the way. So
yeah.
11th of December. So we've jumped ahead just a little bit, but yeah. Now, those left knew that they would inevitably die if they did not find help. The survivors heard on the transistor radio that the Uruguayan Air Force had resumed searching for them, though.
Okay, that's good.
By this time, the weather had obviously improved to a degree that they were able to search and travel again.
Well, I mean, they're there for the changing of the seasons, which blows my mind, but they are still on this mountain for the changing of the seasons. So that's a positive, maybe. Yes, I like.
Okay, we're on the upswing, Kate.
Okay, I hope so. I just can't take any more. I'm really still stuck thinking about my soy milk saga, so it's really, I can't take it. Help me out.
All right, this next section is called the Rescue Trek. Step 1, making a sleeping bag.
Should I write these down? Am I going to need these steps? Anytime I hear a step, I'm like, oh, someone get me a pen.
We love making a list, our survival tips.
Survival tips. God. Amazing. We'll have to put these in our socials.
We should make a book, by the way.
Oh my God, I am writing that down. We'll make a book.
The Lonely Planets, must buy. Okay, rescue trek. Step 1, making a sleeping bag. It was now apparent that the only way out was to climb over the mountains to the west. They also realized that unless they found a way to survive the freezing temperatures of the nights, a trek was impossible. So the survivors who had found the rear of the fuselage came up with an idea to use insulation from the rear of the fuselage, copper wire, and waterproof fabric that covered the air conditioning of the plane to fashion a sleeping bag.
That's clever.
Now, Nando Parado described in his book, Miracle in the Andes, 72 Days on the Mountain and My Long Trek Home, how they came up with the idea of making a sleeping bag. So this is Parado's words. The second challenge would be to protect ourselves from exposure, especially after sundown. At this time of year, we could expect daytime temperatures well above freezing, but the nights were still cold enough to kill us, and we knew now that we couldn't expect to find shelter on the open slopes. We needed a way to survive the long nights without freezing, and the quilted bats of insulation we'd taken from the tail section gave us our solution. As we brainstormed about the trip, we realized we could sew the patches together to create a large warm quilt. Then we realized that by folding the quilt in half and stitching the seams together, we could create an insulated sleeping bag large enough for all 3 expeditionaries to sleep in. With the warmth of 3 bodies trapped by the insulating cloth, we might be able to weather the coldest of nights. Carlitos took on the challenge. His mother had taught him to sew when he was a boy, and with the needles and thread from the sewing kit found in his mother's cosmetic case, he began to work.
Oh my gosh. There you go. Hot tip. Teach your kids, boys, girls, and everyone in between and either side, teach them how to sew. Teach them life skills. This is amazing.
I was just about to say exactly that, and put them in dance class too.
Yes. Put them in a dance class and an acting class, even if they hate drama. I'm an advocate. It's so many things. Just, that's our separate PSA. That's a soapbox that I will happily die.
Yes. With your soy milk.
With my soy milk. Don't bring it up. I was just getting over it. Okay.
So to speed up the progress, Carlitos taught others to sew, and we all took our turns. Coche, I forgot. Names are hard, all right?
I know. That's fine. You're doing really well.
Yeah. Gustavo and Fido turned out to be our best and fastest tailors. After the sleeping bag was completed and Numa Takati died, we talked about that previously, Canessa was still hesitant. While others encouraged Parado, none would volunteer to go with him. Parado finally persuaded Canessa to set out, and joined by Vitzin, the 3 of the men took to the mountain on the 12th of December.
Oh.
So this is the day after that final person died, weighing 25 kilos.
Yeah, exactly.
So climbing the peak. Step 2. On 12th of December 1972, Parado, Canessa, and Vitzin, lacking any mountaineering gear of any kind, began to climb the glacier at 3,570 meters to the peak, blocking their way in the west, which was a good, over 1,000 meters difference they had to climb in height. They trekked for over 10 days, 38 miles or 61 kilometers to seek help. Now, based on the aircraft's altimeter, they thought they were at 7,000 feet when they were actually at about 11,800 feet.
Damn.
Yeah. Now, given the pilot's dying statement that they were near Crucho, that they believed that they were near the western edge of the Andes. As a result, they brought only a 3-day supply of meat.
Oh, no.
Parado wore 3 pairs of jeans and 3 sweaters over a polo shirt. He wore 4 pairs of socks wrapped in plastic shopping bags. They had no technical gear, no map or compass, and no climbing experience. Instead of climbing the saddle to the west, that is about 1,600 meters lower than the peak, they climbed straight up the steep mountain. They thought they would reach the peak in 1 day. Parado took the lead, and the other 2 often had to remind him to slow down, although the thin, oxygen-poor air made it difficult for all of them. During part of the climb, they sank up to their hips in the snow, which had been softened by the summer sun. So, you think weather's getting better, this is all good, it's a good sign for them, but it's actually making things, not harder necessarily, but it's just all different challenges,
It's
right?
bad, yeah. I was trying to think about distance too. You said 60 kilometers. I'm probably 30K from the CBD, and that's to the city and back.
Yeah.
And that's tricky on like footpaths.
And you're climbing
Yeah.
over 1,000. Yeah, like
Wow.
it's a
I
kilometer
honestly,
up.
I'm really struggling to comprehend how they survived. I'm
Yeah.
really struggling to comprehend this.
Now, it was still bitterly cold, but the sleeping bag allowed them to live long through the night. So that was a massive win.
Yeah.
In the film Stranded, which is not the film that we mentioned last week, but it's similar. In the film Stranded, Kinessa described how on the first night during the ascent, they had difficulty finding a place to put down the sleeping bag. A storm blew so fiercely, and they finally found a spot on a ledge of rock on the edge of an abyss.
No.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's a no. That's a no from me. I'm not a huge fan of the whole rock thing, and then just throw in an abyss for extra measure. No thanks.
Yeah. Just make it that little bit more dangerous.
Yeah.
Now, Kinessa said it was the worst night of his life. The climb was very slow. The survivors at the fuselage watched them climb for 3 days.
Ugh.
On the second day, Kinessa thought he saw a road to the east and tried to persuade Parado to head in that direction. Parado disagreed, and they argued without reaching a decision. On the third morning of the trek, Kinessa stayed at their camp. Vitzen and Parado reached the base of a near vertical wall more than 100 meters tall, encased in snow and ice. Parado was determined to hike out or die trying. He used a stick from his pack to carve steps in the wall. He gained the summit of the 4,650 meters high peak before Vitzen. Thinking he would see the green valleys of Chile to the west, he was stunned to see a vast array of mountain peaks in absolutely every direction.
Oh, no.
They had climbed a mountain on the border of Argentina and Chile, meaning the trekkers were still tens of kilometers from the green valleys of Chile.
That makes me feel sick.
Yeah.
Imagine that. They're like, oh, thank God, I'm just at the final vertical wall. I'm going to fashion myself some steps, and then we'll be on our way. And then you reach that peak. You would just, I would think myself off the edge. Honestly, I would just be like, well, that's enough for me. Into the abyss I go.
See you later.
See ya.
Yeah. Now, Vitzen and Parado rejoined Kinessa where they had slept the night before. At sunset, while sipping cognac they had found in the tail section, Parado said, "Roberto, can you imagine how beautiful this would be if we were not dead men?" So perceptive to be able to say that, even in that state, to be able to show appreciation for just the sheer beauty of where you are in the world. And I've never been to the Andes. I cannot wait to go to that part of the world.
Yeah.
It's like a dream of mine, but because it is so stunning and beautiful. But my God, after 70 days or whatever, you can still have perspective enough to say that.
Absolutely. Yeah, that would be high on his VIA character strengths. Appreciation of beauty. That would be it's got to be his number one, surely.
If I saw him on Hinge, I would
swipe that. Imagine that. Wowee. As long as then the next picture isn't of him holding a fucking fish, then he'll get a swipe. I don't want to see your pictures of holding fish. Stop it, men.
Yeah.
And women, for that matter, if you're posting them, and everyone else in between. If you're holding fish in your profiles, stop it.
Yeah. So the next morning, the three men could see that the hike was obviously going to take much longer than they had originally planned. They were running out of food, so Vitzen agreed to return to the crash site. The return was entirely downhill, and using an aircraft seat as a makeshift sleigh, or toboggan, as we like to say.
Toboggan. Oh, that's the best.
He returned to the crash site in 1 hour. Okay, what took them 3 days to achieve, he did in 1 hour.
Oh, Christ. That's not a good ratio.
No.
I'm not good at math, but I can tell that that's not a good ratio.
Yeah, not great. So Parado and Canessa took 3 hours to climb to the summit. When Canessa reached the top and saw nothing but snow-capped mountains for kilometers around them, his first thought was, we're dead.
Yeah.
Parado saw 2 smaller peaks on the western horizon that were not covered in snow. And there was a valley at the base of the mountain they stood on and wound its way towards the peaks. Parado was sure that this was their way out of the mountains. He refused to give up hope. Canessa agreed to go west. Only much later did Canessa learn that the trail that he thought he saw would have gotten them to rescue.
No. So the initial one or that windy one? The initial one where he said that's a road and the other guy was like, it's not a road. And he's like, it's definitely a road. And they said, let's agree to disagree. And then nothing happened.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, holy moly.
They were so close, Kate. And it's it's soul destroying how close they were.
Oh, I want to see that picture real bad.
On the summit, Parado told Canessa, we may be walking to our deaths, but I would rather walk to meet my death than wait for it to come to me.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Canessa agreed, and he said, you and I are friends, Nando. We have been through so much. Now let's go die together.
Oh.
And they followed the ridge towards the valley and descended a considerable distance. All right.
If you say, oh my God, if you were just about to stop this episode, I was just about to delete your number from my phone. That's what was going to happen.
And then this giant volcano erupted in front of them and killed them.
And a spaceship came and they got abducted and then they had to be hypnotized.
No, next section.
Great.
Finding help, step 3. Parado and Canessa hiked for several more days. First, they were able to reach the narrow valley that Parado had seen on the top of the mountain, where they found the source of the Rio San Jose, leading to the Rio Portillo, which meets the Rio Azufre at Maitines. So, bunch of rivers, babe. They all connect.
Yep.
They followed the river and reached the snow line. So, a snow line is obviously when the temperatures of a level where snow cannot no longer survive, and
snow can't grow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No trees did. So gradually they appeared more and more signs of human presence. First, some evidence of camping, and finally, on the 9th day, some cows.
Cows? Do you think they said that when they saw them?
Yeah, moo.
I think.
Before cows. When they rested that evening, they were very tired. No shit.
Oh, no shit. Holy. I mean, I'm not an author, but I definitely could have guessed that.
Yeah.
Fucking hell.
Canessa, he pretty much just gave up. He said, I can't go any further.
Done.
I am cooked. As the men gathered wood to build a fire, one of them saw 3 men on horseback on the other side of the river.
Oh my God.
Parado called them, but the noise of the river made it impossible to communicate.
Oh.
One of the men across the river saw Parado and Canessa and shouted back, tomorrow.
No. Oh my God. Do you have any idea? It'd be like, no, Toby, we've been on a cliff.
Now.
Right now.
Yeah.
Right effing now, buddy. No tomorrow. Get your pony over this mountain and this water and come get me.
The next day, the man did, in fact, return.
Oh, thank Christ for that.
He scribbled a note, attached it and a pencil to a rock with some string, and threw the message across the river. We've got a photo of the note. It will be shared on our socials.
Oh.
Parado replied, I come from a plane that fell in the mountains. I am Uruguayan. We have been walking for 10 days. I have a wounded friend up there. In the plane, there are still 14 injured people. We have to get out from here quickly, and we don't know how. We don't have any food. We are weak. When are you going to come fetch us? Please, we cannot even walk. Where are we?
Oh my God.
Imagine reading that note. You would just...
Oh, you'd be like, oh, geez, I feel really bad about the whole tomorrow thing. I'm sorry. I just had a bit of gas because I had some dodgy dodgy seafood, and I just really needed to go. I just wasn't into helping you out yesterday, but goodness me, do I seem like a fool now?
Yeah.
Suzzy.
Now, Sergio Catalan, a Chilean arrero muleteer, so works with mules, read the note and gave them a sign that he understood. Catalan talked with the other two men, and one of them remembered that several weeks before, Carlos Paez's father had asked them if they had heard about the Andes plane crash. The Herreros could not imagine that anyone could still be alive. Catalan threw bread to the men across the river. He then rode on horseback westward for 10 hours straight to bring help. That is a very hard thing to do, just in case.
Can I ask as well, how raging is this river? So they can throw bread and rocks, but they can't get across? Is it like this is a perilous river? It must be. It must be.
I'm sure, up in the mountains where there's lots of snow, I'm sure at some point the river's probably either frozen over or quite, water's not really flowing because everything's frozen.
Yeah.
But I would imagine as we're coming into the summer season, a lot of snow is melting. So that river's probably picked up a bit of steam, I'd imagine.
Pretty hectic. Yep, gotcha.
And without, I don't think they had cameras and things to, take a picture of the exact conditions of the river.
Yeah.
But I would imagine that if they waited for the next day, and even in their weak state, they probably shouldn't try and cross a river.
Yeah, for sure. Cool.
Water, all that sort of stuff. So
gotcha.
Yeah. So Catalan, he rode for 10 hours straight to try and bring help. During his trip, he saw another arrero on the south side of the Rio Azufre and asked him to reach the men and to bring them to Los Martínez. Then he followed the river to its junction with Rio Tinguaricha, where after crossing a bridge, he was able to reach the narrow route that linked the village of Puente Negro to the holiday resort of Termas del Flaco, that place that was abandoned that I told you that they were, 20 kilometers near?
Oh, God. Yeah, okay.
Here he was able to stop a truck and reach the police station at Puente Negro. They relayed news of the survivors to the army command in San Fernando, Chile, who contacted the army in Santiago.
Amazing.
Meanwhile, Parado and Canessa were brought on horseback to Los Martínez de Carucha, where they were fed and allowed to rest. What, you're going to make them go run a half marathon? You're not allowed to do the dishes before we feed you.
Yeah, no rest for the wicked. Up you get.
They had hiked about 38 kilometers, 24 miles over 10 days. Since the plane crash, Canessa had lost almost half of his body weight, about 44 kilograms. So he weighed more than I did, but imagine, me losing half of what I've got.
No. Don't like it.
I'm not a big boy.
So. No, not at all.
Okay, helicopter rescue, step 4.
Okay, good.
When the news broke out that people had survived the crash of Uruguayan Air Force Flight 571, the story of the passengers' survival after 72 days drew international attention, obviously.
Yeah.
A flood of international reporters began walking several kilometers along the route from Puente Negro to Termas del Flaco. The reporters clamored to interview Parado and Canessa about the crash and their survival ordeal. The Chilean Air Force provided 3 helicopters to assist with the rescue. They flew in heavy cloud cover under instrument conditions to Los Martínez de Carucha, where the army interviewed Parado and Canessa. When the fog lifted at about noon, Parado volunteered to lead the helicopters back to the crash site.
Oh, my gosh.
He had brought the pilot's flight chart and guided the helicopters up the mountain to the location of the remaining survivors. 1 helicopter remained behind in reserve, just in case.
Yep.
The pilots were astounded at the difficult terrain the 2 men had crossed to reach help. On the afternoon of the 22nd of December 1972, the 2 helicopters carrying search and rescue personnel reached the survivors. The steep terrain only permitted the pilot to touch down with a single skid. Due to the altitude and weight limits, the two helicopters were able to take only half of the survivors.
Oh, how do you pick that?
Yeah.
Do you just draw straws? How do you
I'd
pick?
say most in need first.
Yeah, fair enough.
4 members of the search and rescue team volunteered to stay with the 7 remaining survivors on the mountain.
Mm.
The survivors slept a final night in the fuselage with the search and rescue party.
Oh.
Yeah. The second flight of helicopters arrived the following morning at daybreak. Thank goodness.
Oh my God, they didn't have to wait all damn day. Yeah, that's right. Okay.
They carried the remaining survivors to hospitals in Santiago for evaluation. They were treated for a variety of conditions, including altitude sickness, dehydration, frostbite, broken bones, scurvy, and malnutrition.
Yeah.
The last remaining survivors were rescued on the 23rd of December, 1972, more than 2 months after the crash.
Oh.
Under normal circumstances, the search and rescue team would have brought back the remains of the dead for burial. However, given the circumstances, including that the bodies were in Argentina, the Chilean rescuers left the bodies at the site until authorities could make the necessary decisions.
Okay. The bureaucratic processes, which, I can understand, but goodness me, you'd feel bad as one of the rescuers, I feel like. You'd be, you'd feel a bit, yeah.
Now, the Chilean military photographed the bodies and mapped the area. So the intention was always to come back.
Yeah.
Kate, take a breath. Everybody at home, take a breath. They are off the mountain. They have been rescued.
Thank goodness for that.
And we kind of knew that was coming because I gave it away with the title of a book, but
that's okay.
It's still intense.
It's still intense, and you still want to know how it happened. It's like, spoiler alert, Bruce Willis is dead in Sixth Sense. Sorry, but you want to see how it happens. Like, you still want to see that jump scare with little baby Keira Knightley, or no, not Keira Knightley, the other one from OC.
Haley Joel Osment.
No. Boy, that's the boy that sees the dead people. The other bird from OC, Chelsea would know. She's probably screaming it out right now. She's like, it's my birthday podcast, and you can't even remember that girl's name.
Melissa or something.
Oh, Christ, it's going to drive me batty. Chelsea, let us know. Anyhow, you got to see those jump scares, so it doesn't matter. Even if you threw in a little spoiler, people can get over it.
Yeah, they're over it. So let's get to the aftermath, shall we?
Let's do it.
Cannibalism revealed. So if you didn't remember, this story does have cannibalism.
Yeah.
I think we've moved so far beyond it, but
I think so.
Upon being rescued, the survivors initially explained that they had eaten some cheese and other food they had carried with them, and then local plants and herbs. They planned to discuss the details of how they survived, including their cannibalism, in private with their families.
Mm-hmm.
Rumours circulated in Montevideo immediately after the rescue that the survivors had killed some of the others for food. On the 23rd of December, news reports of cannibalism were published worldwide, except in Uruguay. On the 26th of December, Boxing Day, 2 pictures taken by members of the Andean Relief Corps and a half-eaten human leg were printed on the front page of 2 Chilean newspapers.
Oh my God. Are they all right? How's the audacity? That is so unnecessary. This story, as you said, we are far beyond the cannibalism side. This is a story of the most incredible human feat that I've ever heard of to date. I cannot believe I don't know this story, and this has been the best story I've ever heard. We're beyond it. Don't print it on the front page. And what if that is someone's loved one, and you just print their half-eaten leg on your paper? Grow up.
So in response to this, sensational news, the survivors held a press conference on the 28th of December at Stella Marie College in Montevideo, where they recounted the events of the past 72 days. So, you're not over this, but let's just get you to relive the whole fucking thing, shall we?
Yeah, let's just drag you over the coals when you still haven't even recovered. Yeah. Far out.
Now, Alfredo Delgado spoke to the survivors. He compared their actions to that of Jesus Christ at the Last Supper. during which God gave his disciples the Eucharist. The survivors received public backlash initially, but after they explained the pact the survivors had made to sacrifice their flesh if they died to help the others survive, the outcry diminished and the families were more understanding.
Yeah.
A Catholic priest heard the survivors' confessions and told them that they were not damned for cannibalism, given the extremist nature of their survival situation.
Yeah. I think there's a statute of limitations on when you can and cannot be a cannibal. And I'm going to put that one in the top. And they didn't, you mentioned earlier, they said that, they killed people to eat them. No, they didn't. People died and then said, hey, feel free to have a little nibble because you need to stay alive. And that's what I want to do for you.
Yeah.
That's, unreal.
Look, I wasn't able to find this in detail. Like, first of all, you know me, I like to hear both sides. Obviously, no one who was eaten survived. So it is, I'm sure some conspiracy people out there might be able to say, well, that you're taking their word on that pact. There was no one who was eaten who could attest to the fact that they gave consent to it. Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Right?
I've got you. But if they did, that sounds like another episode that we could do.
Right. In saying that, though, the other part of me goes, they obviously did go back and find all the remains of people. I'm sure they would be able to at least determine that no one was actively killed. To suggest, therefore, being killed for eating. But anyway, let's not get into it. I think it's more than safe to say I believe that the pact was real.
Yeah.
All right, the remains. The authorities and the victims' families decided to bury the remains near the site of the crash in a common grave. 13 bodies were completely untouched, while another 15 were mostly skeletal. 12 men and a Chilean priest were transported to the crash site on the 18th of January, 1973. Family members were not allowed to attend. They dug a grave about 400 to 800 meters from the aircraft fuselage at the site they thought was safe from avalanche. Close to the grave, they built a simple stone altar and staked an orange iron cross on it. They placed a plaque on the pile of rocks and inscribed, "The world to its Uruguayan brothers, close, O God, to you."
That's nice. I don't know what to say.
I don't know what to say.
That was nice.
That was perfectly said. Okay.
Yeah, that's nice.
They doused the remains of the fuselage in gasoline and set it alight. Only the charred airframe remained. The father of one of the victims had received word from a survivor that his son wished to be buried at home on the mountain. Unable to obtain official permission to retrieve his son's body, Ricardo Edvaran mounted an exhibition on his own with hired guides. He had prearranged with the priest who had buried his son to mark the bag containing his son's remains. Upon his return to the abandoned Hotel Damas with his son's remains, he was arrested for grave robbing. A federal judge and the local mayor intervened to obtain his release, and Ekvaran later obtained legal permission to bury his son. Good. So, again, out of respect, let's list the survivors. Roberto Canessa, the medical student, Nando Parado, Carlos Paez Rodriguez, Jose Pedro Algota, Alfredo Pancho Delgado, Daniel Fernandez, Roberto Bobby Francois, Roy Harley, Jose Coche Luis Incarite, Alvaro Mangino, Javier Methol, Ramon Sabella, Adolfo Fito Strauch, Eduardo Strauch, Antonio Tintin Vitzen, and Gustavo Zabino.
Amazing.
All right. There is a legacy, obviously, to this amazing story.
Yeah.
The survivors' courage under extremely adverse conditions is being described as a beacon of hope, to their generation, showing what can be accomplished with persistence and determination in the presence of unsurpassable odds, and set our minds to attain a common aim. The story of the crash is described in the Andes Museum, which we'll put up a photo, dedicated in 2013. It's in Montevideo.
Mm-hmm.
Got a picture of it, so we'll put that on our socials. But back in 1973, mothers of 11 young people who died in the plane crash founded the Our Children Library in Uruguay to promote reading and teaching. Family members of the victims of the flight founded the Vivian Alive, which translates to Alive, Foundation in 2006 to preserve the legacy of the flight, memory of the victims, and support organ donation. The crash location attracts hundreds of people from all over the world who pay tribute to the victims and survivors and learn about how they survived. The trip to the location takes about 3 days. You four-wheel drive vehicles, they transport travellers from the village to Puesto Ara, near the abandoned Hotel Damas. And from there, travellers ride on horseback, though some choose to walk. They stop overnight on the mountain at El Barrosa camp, and on the third day, they reach Las Lagrimas Glacier, where the remains of the accident are found.
Oh, man. Imagine seeing that. IRL.
Yeah. Be pretty intense, pretty powerful.
I think so. Yeah. I also have like a fear of it. Like, what if then, and then what if we got stuck? That's bad. I've heard how bad it is to get back. Yeah, that's true. If you or I see the road, go there. That's the road. You can be saved in 20 minutes. Damn it.
In March 2006, the families of those aboard the flight had a black obelisk monument built at the crash site, memorializing those who lived and died. In 2007, Chilean Herrero Sergio Catalan was interviewed on Chilean television, during which he revealed that he had leg-hip arthrosis. So Catalan was the gentleman that found Canessa and Parado.
Yep. Yes, gotcha. And rode 10 hours on horseback.
Yep.
Legend.
Canessa, who had become a doctor, and other survivors raised funds to pay for a hip replacement operation. Sadly, Sergio Catalan died on the 11th of February 2020 at the age of 91, just before COVID ruined the world.
Great.
There are a number of books, plays, musicals, music, and films produced that are inspired by this amazing story. There's operas, there's everything. Most notable for its commercial is Frank Marshall's 1993 film, narrated by John Malkovich and starring Ethan Hawke, which is which we posted about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And that, my dear and my listeners, is the exhausting story of Miracle Flight 571.
That was phenomenal. That was my favorite story so much, Dominic. It was my best favorite. I loved it. Oh, far out. I just can't get over it. Again, I just get tired sometimes. I just think, no, I'll just have a sleep in, just another 5-minute snooze. And these people, what they went through to survive that, I can't comprehend it. Yeah. It's incomprehensible.
I do recommend going and watching the movie. I wouldn't say it's the greatest movie alive, but it is a pretty darn accurate sort of recreation, and I think there's some pretty cool stuff in there. I rewatched it. Amazing. But I know we love to have a pop culture reference.
We do.
I've already spoken about Alive in the first episode, so I thought I would quickly shout out probably one of my other favorite movies, which is along the similar veins, is Anthony Hopkins and Alec Baldwin in a movie called, I've just forgotten what it's called, The Edge.
The Edge. Nice. Yes. Okay. I could watch Alec Baldwin do lots of things. So
got Elle Macpherson as well.
Oh, cute. Okay.
Yeah. Rich old man, young man, and their friend gets plane crash in, I think, Alaska.
Okay. All right. I'm putting it on the list. It's going on the list.
So if you're in the mood for that sort of survival-y type stuff, go watch The Edge. It's a good one too.
Amazing. I will. Oh, Dom, that was so great. Thank you so much for sharing that story. You're amazing.
You are most welcome. We've really like fanged it the past 4 weeks, really.
I
2
think
double
so.
whammy episodes.
Yeah, that's it.
Our listeners, you must be pretty exhausted, but
that's so true. But buckle in because there'll be another episode next week. It's going to be really good.
And another Boo Pod recommendation, so stay tuned for that as well.
Yes, please do. Just to stop everybody from screaming at me, it was Misha Barton. Misha Barton is from the OC. She's in The Sixth Sense. She's the one with the soup that comes out of her mouth because she gets poisoned. So I just needed to finish on that before we went because I was racking my brains and it just popped into my little head.
Yeah, Chelsea, stop yelling at me.
Yeah, stop screaming just because it's your birthday. All right. Thank you, everybody. We look forward to seeing you next week. And don't forget to, jump on our social medias, Shit and Bricks Podcast. We love you.
Like, share, follow, suggest, recommend, and go check out The Activity Continues with Megan and Amy.
Yippee.
See you next week.
See you next week. Bye.
Bye.
That was so flippin' good. Oh.
Knackered?
So good. So impressed.
It is.